What are we doing here?
You asking me this question as a civilian? Because that's what we are right now, civilians. No different than kindergarten teachers or the bum that collects aluminum cans outside my building.
I know where I flunked my badge yesterday. What are we doing here?
We're monitoring a suspicious individual to try and figure out if he's got any money he doesn't need.
Anchovies.
Hello, everyone. This is the Granite Mountain Movie Club. This is a show where we talk about movies. We talk about, pop culture, media. The only real defining feature is that we don't allow any libtards on the show. So just got to do a quick check. Bennett, are you a libtard?
Oh, geez. No, I'm not a libtard.
Okay, good. Degree studies, are you a libtard?
I would say
He's a libtard.
I've had spells of libtardedness, but the doctor told me I recovered, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so we got no libtards. We're safe. Yeah, so with that, today we're talking about, a movie that, love it or hate it, it's not a libtard movie. That's for sure. It's Dragged Across
Correct.
Concrete, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, like 2018, 2019, S. Craig Zahler film.
Yeah, that
Bone
sounds
Tomahawk.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, same guy who did Bone Tomahawk and Brawl in Cell Block 99, I think.
Yes, with also had Vince Vaughn.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's my guests today are Dr. Bennett. Bennett's Phylactery. You've seen him on Twitter, you know him. We'll do like plugs and stuff at the end for the various things you guys are working on. And then we got Degree Studies. He was here just a month ago talking about Avatar. So you know him as well. I wasn't able to get an advertiser for today, but who would you guys recommend if I were to reach out to some advertisers? Should we get like Squarespace or something?
For like this movie specifically, or just in general for the podcast?
Oh, sure. Yeah, for this, that's a better challenge for this movie. Who would want to attach their brand name to this?
Well, obviously Bud Light, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're moving in a very
Bud Light would be all over this.
Benetton might be due for a rebrand.
Yeah.
Maybe has any right wing podcast like gotten the stupid Daily Wire chocolate to advertise?
Not that I've heard of.
There's ultra right beer now. Did you guys see that?
Oh no.
It's another guy doing the Jeremy's Razors thing. Buy my right wing beer. We won't trans your kids.
Yeah. Comes from the same spigot probably as the gay trans beer.
I mean, that's best case, right? Is if it's coming from the same, and if it's not, it's not like Chinese gutter oil or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I was hoping we could get like FanDuel or something. I heard they do a lot of podcasts, but they weren't interested. So
Yeah, I think back in the day it was like job posting sites, and now it's all dick pills. So
yeah, gambling. Also back in the day, it seemed like the advertisers, like I think podcasting is never really. It doesn't feel like it's ever taken off commercially. Like everyone, it's kind of like blogging. Everyone just does it for free, which is fine. But there was a while where advertisers got hyped up on it, and it seemed like every podcast had advertisers.
yeah,
And the advertisers didn't seem very discerning. They were just like working through brokers or something to place ads. And
well, yeah, I'm sure you've heard that story on Night Owls about how TRS got like some mainstream advertisers for like a week, and then they figured out what the show was.
For the folks at home, what is TRS?
So I think it's colloquially referred to as the Daily Sweat because the original S was for something we don't say.
Yeah, okay. Good point. I should have thought of that. But yeah, they used to just have these advertisements that would have been bad for the brand. But here we are, no ads, whatever. Okay, dragged across concrete. Who wants to take a stab? Just dispassionately, no analysis, just summarize. What is this? What happens here?
I can take a swing at it.
Go for it.
Because I think it's kind of a classic setup. It's like there's two cops, an older guy and a younger guy, and they maybe push the rules a little so they get suspended, and they're both in a situation where they kind of need money. So they're starting to think about like what, outside the lines they could do to pick up the slack of getting money while they're not getting paid. And then in the background at the same time, there's like a vault heist taking place with a very creepy criminal who's like very mysterious and weird. And there's also like a different guy who got out of jail who's also involved in that vault heist. And then the action of the movie is sort of like the intersection of all those different folks.
So, Bennett, I made you watch this a couple weeks ago, and here's what you said. You said, "This is the weirdest movie. It's written by aliens. I need to know what spoke to you about this movie." And you said, "If I didn't know, I would have guessed the screenwriter was 80 years old." Tell me about your experience with this movie.
Oh man, there's just things, and I'm reciting this cold after. I mean, well, I watched it weeks ago, because I thought we were going to record weeks ago. Granted, but
we work at the speed of, I don't know. Oh, I mentioned this in someone else's show, but like the 4 Hour Life, the 4HL. I got like a 1HL. I got like 1 hour a day, basically, to do all the things I need to do. So that's the
Granite
speed.
Mountain Movie Club is on that. It's on that 1HL grind.
Yeah.
Grind set. So I should have written down the specific lines, but it's like his wife has MS, and she's like, for me as a veteran cop on the force with MS, like I'm under considerable socioeconomic stress at this period in history. Like they sort of recite what's happening in this very like ripped from the headlines kind of way. Like, we're going to rap about the issues in this movie.
Yeah, she even has sort of the neoconservative speech where she's like, I want to be a liberal, but I've been mugged by reality.
I think she almost literally says that.
Yeah, she says, I never thought of myself as a racist, but, after a few years in this neighborhood, and then they change the subject.
Yeah, and there's so many moments like that. Oh, and the black guy's playing video games with his like crippled little brother.
I think it's his little brother, yeah, or nephew. Yeah, it's his little brother.
Yeah,
and he said something like, "Can we archive this adventure?" Like he's saying, "Can we stop playing the game for a second?" But he says, like, "Can we save this adventure?" Or so. Like he says it like he's never heard of a video game, and that's what made me think like, there at the final scene of the movie, he's playing video games on the big screen TV because spoilers, he gets the gold, and they're very obviously playing a one-player game, but they both have controllers and they're both acting as if they're playing, and it's like there's just like elements of this movie that, like, when I say I feel like an 80-year-old wrote this, it's like. It's somebody who's been in a time capsule, or somebody who's just like they're a senator or something, and someone else is checking their email for them, and so they like have no idea how any of that works. And yeah, just the weirdness of the writing was really. And you mentioned to me like, oh, it's Grindhouse, you wouldn't get it, and I was like,
I didn't say that.
So maybe you can maybe you can give me some culture on this episode.
So, and I'm not a Grindhouse enthusiast, so I don't. But my impression is that it's the movie is like informed by Grindhouse, and so some of the like stilted language and the stilted, and you may have noticed in some of the scenes of violence and gore that it's almost like they paused the camera for a second to like set up the guy getting shot and so like it. And I think that was my understanding is that's kind of like Grindhouse informed, like they're intentionally kind of riffing on that. Now you might say, why would someone do that? And I don't exactly know, but to me it's kind of like, like why would someone might come along and say, well, why would that rock band distort their perfectly good guitars? Like they could make a clean sound. Why would they make it
Good
sound?
question. Still legitimate question.
Yeah, no distortion. No one should use distortion. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I read a couple of reviews, and it seems like the consensus among like lib movie reviewers was that this was trolling, like that he's not expressing sincere opinions. He's just sticking his finger in these people's eyes, which unless he's just a really bad screenwriter, like I'd buy that for $1. I think that's probably
Yeah, I think it's
as good an interpretation of what he's doing as any, because it's so heavy-handed. It's almost like he's saying, how would you feel if you had to sit through a movie that talks about this shit the way you people talk about this shit? Like I'm gonna make you suffer the way that we have to suffer when we watch like Buzz Lightyear or something.
Degree studies. Are you about to say something?
Well, yeah, I don't really know what Grindhouse is, but maybe this is a similar term. But when I was watching it this time, I didn't realize it started with this sort of like fun, moving, like 70s funkish R&B song. And I was like, oh, this is sort of like a troll exploitation movie. It's like in something like Shaft, like all the cops would be corrupt, but the criminals would also be bad, and it's sort of funny. And I think what's weird genre-wise about this movie is it's light in certain ways and funny like an exploitation movie, but then the violence is just super hardcore. And I think Bennett is right, and I've sort of found this about all Zahler's movies, is like there's something a little inhuman about it. Like I don't know if he's an autist, but it's like he sort of like he can't even create real human moments, but when he does, he like delights in destroying them. Like I really wish a thing that wasn't in this movie was the weird little setup before the woman goes to work at the bank, because it's just like it's not like actually human and affecting, because it's so over the top that you're like, okay, this is like not really a response I can imagine someone having, and yet it's still just like fucked up and unpleasant to see.
Yeah, a couple things about that. So you mentioned the music, and yeah, I think it is intentionally trying to evoke like a budget film in a sense. Like he's intentionally trying to bring that into it. And again, you could say why, why would you do that when you could just choose to not do that? It's fun for someone. It's signaling to someone. it didn't need to be that way for me, but I liked it. I like that vibe. And then also the music, it was all written. All the words were written by Zahler for the songs, and they were performed by like that legendary soul band, the OJs.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he wrote all the words, and even he may have even written some of the music as well. But then it was performed by the OJs.
Are the lyrics like weird and applicable to the story, or are they sort of like normal R&B lyrics?
I bet if you looked really closely, yeah.
One of them is Shotgun Safari, which is the name of the game that the kids.
Okay, yeah. I think the troll evidence is adding up.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, and the opening one I think was something black felines on the street corner or something. That was funny. I thought that song.
Street corner felines. Yeah.
I think the songs are funny, and like don't close the drive-in. I like that one. Um, I think the songs are kind of funny and good. In regards to trolling, you guys know who? If I say Marlo Stern, you've probably seen him on Twitter. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. He's like a BuzzFeed or Daily Beast, like always
Yeah, I
telling
found.
us
Yeah,
Bill Maher fucked up again.
yeah. Here's a thing from him, from Daily Beast. Mel Gibson's new police brutality movie is a vile, racist, right-wing fantasy. I didn't highlight the parts of the article, but some of them are very funny. Some parts of it. Let's see. Anyway, but yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know if someone like him, his whole career is just reacting this way. So maybe he's not allowed to like ever be honest. But I don't see how you watch this and really conclude it's a right-wing fantasy, a racist right-wing fantasy. Because
Well, my fantasy has always been to bleed out from a shot to the stomach, but that the person who killed me will send my wife some gold. That's definitely
yeah,
It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy that you get to make a movie like this. That's what it's a fantasy of. It's a fantasy of I get to say all the things that I think in a movie. And that's what they're mad about. They're mad that he got to say some things that he thought in this movie.
yeah. It's funny too. Yeah, it's like if you read this little article, he just lists out the stuff that happens in the movie, and he's just like, and these are all bad things. It's like, well, yeah, but it's a movie. You're not. No one told you. Like, if you concluded that like Mel Gibson was the good guy, that's on you. Like, no, like the movie makes him the main character, but you don't have to like think what he's doing is cool or good. I kind of think what he's doing is cool and good, but you don't have to think that.
yeah. I just mean it's interesting. I mean, I think this is like a bullshit way to look at art anyway, but usually if you have a racist character, quote unquote racist, even in a protagonist role, if the text of the film punishes that person, usually libtards will be like, oh, this movie isn't actually about like being racist, being good because blah, blah, blah. Like they don't, nothing good. Like usually the sort of character arc, if it ends in a bad place, people will be like, oh, well, the artist isn't racist because they're showing blah, blah, blah. And like no one in this movie really prospers except for, I think the actor's name is something Kittles, the black,
Terry or Tory Kittles or something.
yeah, the ex-con. So like, I don't know, in that usual didactic way they look at films, I think it's like not a racist fantasy. But I see what you're saying, Bennett, that like it's just it's transgressive to even let characters talk like this.
Well, and I think it's a problem for them too because Mel Gibson is so good at acting, and he makes there is an appeal to his character. His character doesn't really do anything virtuous in the movie. I mean, he's an effective cop, and he's lightly. I would say he's not. He gets busted for.
He stepped on a guy's hand.
And his neck too. Like
okay. She chauvins him.
Yeah, he does the show, but you hear a cracking sound, and so like it's maybe implied that he didn't break his neck, but it's like he cracked a bone or something.
Just getting a kink out.
Yeah. They see that, and he sees an effective cop, but the point I guess I'm making is Mel Gibson's so compelling just as a guy on screen that people are very mad to see a guy like that do that, say these things, just with a straight face. Gets punished.
He's almost compelling. Like it's hard to separate the way in which he's compelling from his real life, because like he looks sort of haggard, And like especially when he's playing like a misunderstood or reviled character, it's just very easy to make that association with him, you know, like
Yeah.
this guy sort of sees some things other people don't see, and he's like under assault constantly, but he's, you know, he's just trying to do what, like, I do find his character heroic, at least in the sense that, like, I always really like characters where, like, the orientation seems to be that they, like, really hate life and think it's all bullshit and would probably kill themselves if they were, like, a solo person, but they have a family. So they're, like, they're putting themselves through something in order to, like, secure their family's future. Like, I think that's how you'd describe, like, of course, none of the individual actions are good, but that's sort of his higher aim, right?
Yeah. I wrote the day after I watched it. Personally, I think Dragged Across Concrete should have included a rolling chyron reminding the viewer that Mel Gibson is bad and the things he says are wrong. And then, or maybe they could have had the black guy's precocious disabled little brother explain to the camera why Mel's character's racism is both incorrect and harmful. Mel's character is moved to tears and confesses and begs forgiveness and receives it. And then he is slowly lowered into a volcano. Like, I think that's the only way that you could let him say those things like he would have had to have like you would have had to have that loving close up on his black bleeding guts.
Yeah. And maybe this is like a different conversation.
And he would have to, you know what he would have had to do? He would have had to betray the ex-con in like a really disgusting way. That's because then it's like, oh, you get that he's the bad guy too. Okay, he probably would have got away with it.
I think maybe this is like a little bit away from the art, but I think one reason I like exploitation movies, which sort of it's a little bit lighter, but they present cops like this. And one reason I do kind of like this presentation of cops is like, I do just sort of assume you have to be a little bit like this if you're a cop. And I think that's part of what people don't like about it is like, you just sort of present a situation where like this level of cynicism and certain observations about races or whatever, like it kind of makes sense. And I think people really don't like being presented with that.
Yeah. Like the, in the opening scene where they break into that apartment to arrest the guy and arrest the girlfriend, and they're talking to her and they keep saying like, did she say something? Did you hear what she said? And they're pretending like, you know, they're just joking that they're not listening to her or whatever. You know, when she says like, oh, you promised you promised I wouldn't go to jail or something if I helped you. And in that Marlo Stern article, he's like, and they mock her Latina accent. It's like, they're not mocking her Latina accent. This is just what cops do to get things done. They lie and say like, oh no, the perp didn't say this, or the perp did say this, or the perp had this on him, or you know, it's not. I mean, they were doing like I guess racial jokes or whatever in her presence, but they weren't mocking her accent. They were just doing what they do to every criminal.
Yeah, that's certainly how I read it. I thought it was like she both had a little bit of a Latin accent and she's deaf or whatever. So like she also had a little bit of deaf speak.
Yeah.
And so they had like multiple reasons why saying they didn't understand her was plausible. Yeah,
but they understood her clearly. It's just they were
sure. Yeah.
I'm gonna take a step back and just so Bennett, is it fair to say you didn't like it, or is that too reductive to put it down to like and dislike?
I didn't enjoy the experience of the movie. If that makes sense. Like it's a hard movie to watch in a lot of ways. But it was interesting. It was weird enough that I was there for it. I was like, all right, I want to know what this guy's deal is, and I want to know why Granite liked it, and so I was along for the ride.
Degree studies. What? Where are you at? Just on the like dislike spectrum?
So I really like it, and I would say I like all his movies. Um, and I think one thing, maybe this is a little unfair, but like I suspect a difference Bennett and I might have, or I don't know where you come down, Granite, is like I definitely think nihilism is bad, but sometimes nihilism in art is compelling to me. Um, and I think there is like a little bit of I don't know. I think he's up to something like that's maybe even sort of evil, but because it's like opposed to I don't know many like reigning attitudes or whatever. It's sort of entertaining. But if someone said, sort of as Bennett said at the beginning, like something like, there's no evidence that a human being made this movie. Like I sort of agree with that. I just like was entertained and scandalized nevertheless.
Yeah. Well, where I come down on it is I love it. I like it a lot. I think it's I do think it's awkward and mean spirited. And there's but there's like a surreal aspect to it that really works for me. I don't know exactly why, but that's what I was getting at with the grindhouse stuff. And it they're weird choices, but they work for me. Um, and the banter between Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson, um, that's like it's pretty top tier stuff. I think it's very funny, and it's two guys that I just like to watch. Like I would watch both of them. I would give both of them a chance in just about anything, especially if they're together. Um, and then I also, my first viewing, I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times now, but my first viewing was confusing and perplexing, um, but in ways that really kept my attention. So, um, and I actually, when I think back on the movie, I don't, I kind of like block out a lot of the stuff with, uh, Slim and Muscles. I don't know what they're, the two black guys. Um, I kind of block out a lot of their stuff. Their stuff to me is like, theirs is kind of the weakest part of it. It's the part I want to spend the least time with. Um, but I love it overall. The parking lot, like the end sort of conflict in the parking lot it's kind of very slow but very tense, and it's I think they accomplished something really interesting there. And like just most importantly, it's very funny. It's like a third or a half like dark comedy.
Yeah, I think a lot of the violence is supposed to be weirdly funny, and some of it works for me, and some of it doesn't. Like, do you remember
Hey guys, I gotta step away. Feel free to keep talking. I gotta step away for 2 minutes.
No problem.
like, granted, you remember the first scene where the sort of like weird, mysterious bad guy like robs the Korean supermarket? And
Yeah.
just like as he's leaving, he like shoots a million other things. It's
Yeah.
like first he shoots the video camera. Like I was sort of laughing, and I had an awareness of like I think this is supposed to be funny. Um,
Yeah, and that's what I mean about the confusing and perplexing. Like, and those guys, I actually still don't really. So there's, and this wasn't clear to me the first time I watched it, but I guess if you look at the gloves, there's a gray glove guy and a black glove guy, and I'm not sure which one does which crime, but because they both like sound the same, and they're masked, so you can't tell. But that part was a little weird to me. It's like these are kind of high level criminals, and as far as I can tell, they're doing these like petty crimes to raise money to buy that van.
yeah, they're like fucking around. I think this was another thing I sort of associated with that like exploitation movie genre, because I think often in those movies there's almost like a deus ex machina of like the CIA or something, where it's like the cops and robbers are all fighting, but then there are like these mysterious, much more high end criminals, like often in league with the government or something, that can like do whatever they want. Because, yeah, definitely in more modern, like serious crime movies, the way you would establish that like a criminal gang was very serious is you wouldn't have them just like fucking around robbing liquor stores. But I think the point in this is just you're supposed to think that they're like invincible or something. You know, like they can't get in trouble, so they do whatever they want.
Yeah, yeah. They never seem. Yeah, yeah. If you were robbing liquor stores, you wouldn't be taking unnecessary shots. You'd shoot the one guy you need to shoot to get the money or whatever and leave. But this guy, yeah, he just shoots the whole store just for fun. Yeah, they were kind of confusing to me to the very end, but you also, and this isn't the hardest thing to do, but at least for me, the movie makes you hate them so much. Like they're very annoying. So I wanted to see them. I wanted to see their demise.
Yeah, and they're like European, right? They're like
Well, the boss is European, but the two guys just have like American accents, right?
okay. I wasn't sure, but yeah, they definitely are annoying.
Yeah, they're kind of like those like Mexican brothers on Breaking Bad that never say anything. You're like, why are you this way? Why are you just always like this menacing force that's for some reason hard to beat?
Yeah, they're like the Terminator or whatever. Well, have you watched Brawl in Cell Block 99?
Yeah, I watched that one. Oddly enough, I watched that one like on vacation in Mexico. It was just like channel surfing after like a long day in the sun, and so I'm like tired, and I just watched that one. And that one just I didn't know anything about like Zahler or anything at that point, and that came on, and it just kept getting weirder and weirder. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, what kind of movie is this?
Yeah, I think the violence is similar where like it's sometimes funny, but it's also really intense.
Yeah, and that one's a little more intense because it's a more up close, like people beating each other's heads in and stuff.
Yeah, like it's gross.
This is something I talked to Bennett about because I thought because there is this unnatural aspect to it, and I was thinking I was indulging for a moment the idea that like is this movie does this movie even claim to be set in the real world, or is this sort of like a comic book world? It's like, and so I wondered like do they even mention America, because it's not, it's a fake
Yeah, or
town.
like a city name or something. Yeah,
It's
like
called Bulwark,
right.
and then I think that license plate said like Great Haven, Bulwark in the state of Great Haven or something like that. And so I was wondering, I'm like, is this actually America? I mean, but then I noticed on like my rewatch that they do mention New York at one point. That's like the only reference to like the real geography of our world. But so I guess it is, it is the real world. But part of what got that going is Bennett was talking about like, two cops in this day and age, and we have to live in the slums when, cops are like teachers, and for as much as, they are working class, I guess they're paid well enough, and you don't have to live in the slums if you're a cop.
No, but isn't it a thing that like I feel like this is maybe a bit antiquated, but like where I'm from in Boston or like outside Boston, sort of two things happened simultaneously maybe over the last 30 years, which is like neighborhoods in the city where people like cops would live that weren't bad neighborhoods got so nice that people like that had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of like outlying areas became like immigrant communities and stuff where like maybe so it isn't so much that like there's nowhere nice a cop could afford to live, but it's almost like at least in the recent past, it's like neighborhoods they would live in were particularly subject to demographic and economic change. So you could find yourself living somewhere that you couldn't afford anymore, or living somewhere that was like less safe and you got to get out. And like maybe you can afford to get out, but it's you still have to do it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, they're absolutely liminal. I actually lived in a kind of a cop neighborhood in Texas a couple of years ago, and it was very much like suburbs that were real nice when they were built, that were on a rapid downward trajectory. but they weren't getting cheaper.
Habitat for Humanity came in and started building houses.
Not quite that bad, but it was like just so I'll give you an example. Like we were shooting off fireworks and like getting to know our neighbors on the 4th of July, and we start talking about just what's going on in the neighborhood, and one of the guys is like, yeah, man, you know, some kids got in big trouble because they were stealing tools out of people's trucks to buy weed. And he was, you know, he was from a rougher part of town, and it was clear from his like affect that he was like, you know, it's just kids stealing tools to buy weed. Like, what's the big deal? Like, you just gotta learn to live and let live and loosen up a little bit. And I was sort of like, I don't want to live here anymore.
Yeah.
And
there's like
how do you fence tools as like a 13-year-old?
Yeah, good question. That's another sense in which it was not my world.
But that neighborhood had like, you know, cop cars parked out front as like the guys living there.
Yeah, it was a lot of cops. And yeah, so I would say that they're like lower middle class, and I think lower middle class is increasingly a tough way to live, especially because you're both working. And yeah, that's another thing. It's always two income. I think single income on a cop's salary really is that's slum life. I don't think
right. And really... statistically, they're all divorced, right, and potentially paying child support. So like people's actual reality. And I'm not trying to like make fun of them. I just think it's a known thing that like staying married is difficult for police officers. So
this is a Thin Blue Line podcast. I won't tolerate any more cop slander.
I back the blue, dog.
Don't bring up cop spousal abuse rates. I won't hear it.
But yeah, I mean, so basically, you are like the stuff they talk about in the movie. Like, I gotta send my kid to these horrible schools.
Yeah,
and like, I have family that just recently, one of my young relatives was literally like savagely beaten in school. Had to go to the hospital, and you know, potential brain damage and things, like really badly beaten. And yeah, we're getting personal on the Granite Mountain Movie Club tonight. But so any situation where it's dual income, lower middle class, and you're having to send your kid to the school that you're districted to.
You're policing, yeah.
Yeah, and you may not be in the worst part of that school district, right? Or that school zone. And so you're like, maybe your direct neighbors aren't that bad, but the kids that your kids are going to school with are really screwed up.
Well, possibly we keep going.
I that stuff, it was not resonant to me because he was talking about it instead of demonstrating it. Like the scene where those kids are menacing her and they throw the soda on her. Like that was a way more effective way of getting the point across than mom and dad sitting across the kitchen table after the kids have gone to bed, like vocally fretting about that problem.
Well, I think I agree that there's like sort of a show don't tell problem in those conversations, but I do think the whole thing sort of captures, and Vince Vaughn's whole deal with his girlfriend sort of captures, is like a broader dynamic that's interesting. That's like these types of people, like cops, they have not actually been socialized to think they should have like a terribly undignified, shitty, dangerous life. Like, even if that is the economic reality. So a lot of it is just sort of them being like, can you believe like what we can't afford? Because it's like in their mind, like this is a decent thing to do and they should be able to have a normal life doing this as their vocation, but like of course they can't. And I think like that's a real thing, especially for sort of downwardly mobile whites.
I wanted to go back to the thing about with the soda, the girl getting soda splashed on her, and that's got to be like the most what would it, like if Zahler is trolling, that's got to be the most trolling scene in the movie, because you don't like, do we ever see in a movie,
Because
it's like,
black kids would never waste that much orange soda. Is that what you're
well,
saying?
yeah, I mean they're but it's like 4 black kids, and they're like black kids, like they're not like 2 black kids, a white kid, and a Latino, or like 2 whites, a black, and it's 4 black kids, and we don't really ever see that, or it's just like 4 black kids picking on a white girl. Like that's like, I don't know. Do we ever get that?
I think you're right that there's like a defensive in most movies, most like broad release movies. There'll be like a defensive and unnecessary racial complicating, where like they'll want to make both sides like have a Latino, so that it's less,
Yeah.
I think you can still make Latinos, like you can still have a Latino gang. I think you can. And they can still be ruthless and vicious and scary. I think about like Training Day, right? Like lot of very menacing Latinos.
Yeah, you're still allowed to do stuff with like East LA gangs and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that scene was like not necessarily risky, but the most overt troll in the movie, possibly.
It's interesting. Like, I don't know if this is just like the sad state of America or whatever, but like, I remember when I watched this movie when it came out, thinking this movie was like so bleak and hardcore, and then rewatching it this time, I was like, would they really just throw a soda at her? Like, wouldn't they like beat the shit out of her or touch her up? I don't know. I mean, I guess that is just like my perception of the state of things has declined in the intervening years.
Yeah, the soda, I actually thought the same thing. I have that in my notes. The soda itself is kind of pulling a punch, like, but but yeah, they would have, yeah, the real life thing, because they say like that's the 5th time in 2 years she's been assaulted. It's like, you're getting knocked down, you're getting slapped and stuff like that.
Yeah, especially if it's the 5th time. Yeah.
And the mom is like, she's she's coming of age. They're gonna be like doing other stuff to her soon.
And isn't she like, how old is that girl supposed to be in the movie? Like
13, I think.
Okay. I think if that kind of stuff was going to happen, it's happening sooner than that.
Yeah.
In that situation. I did have the same thought. Like as jaundiced and cynical and like dark as he's trying to be, it wasn't too dark. It wasn't so dark as to be unrealistic. It was just, and I think that's what made people mad about it. I think he simultaneously he's trolling them by saying it, but he's actually being. It's like Charles Murray writing his big book about like what we know about race and gender, and he's so meticulously careful to keep it to things that are like unambiguously, obviously true. And like that's what makes them mad about it. Is it's like it's unassailable, and it's friggin' like bleak and miserable. And
there is some trolling, humanizing too. Like I was laughing really hard this time when it's like the first scene when the Mexican guy is just talking about having sleep apnea.
Yeah,
like when he has him down on the ground.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, it's kind of funny. I think all of us have referred to the first scene as that window scene with the guy, but the actual first scene, something I'd forgotten about. The movie actually opens up with the the convict meeting up with like a prostitute from his elementary school, like that he knew back in elementary school.
That's right. That's right.
I totally forgot about that. That one kind of threw me off. So if you're sensitive to that stuff, just skip the first like minute, I guess.
Yeah, I was sort of expecting a callback, expecting that to lead somewhere, but he's just banging an Asian chick.
Yeah. there's actually there's got to be a term for this. You know Chekhov's gun, where if you introduce a gun in the first act, you have to use it in the third act or something.
Yeah.
This movie does. They do like the
You're
opposite.
introducing Granite's tits as another
Yeah.
film theory.
Like when they introduce things that never come back, which is just like a thing that some of these like misdirection directors do. But the Mel Gibson's car is leaking gas, and it's like you would normally only include that detail if it means there's going to be a problem later with the car exploding or something because it catches on fire. Like, but it never becomes a problem. And
He
even like
just has a shitty car. Like
Yeah.
it's another little piece of color in the world of Bulwark is that he's got a shitty car.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, I do think, granted, that some people, I can't think of one right now, but I think certain directors, I'm not sure Zahler is one, but they get annoyed at like how aware of the formula the public has become, and so they throw in red herrings because they don't want to be that super legible.
Yeah, because I was thinking the first time I saw it, when Vince Vaughn is down, firing his rifle from the prone position under the car, and he's right next to this gas. I'm like, oh, they're gonna blow up, like something bad's gonna happen, but nothing happens. Oh, back to the like race stuff. Did you guys? I kind of felt like, ultimately having the black guy win in the end was sort of like he was kind of wrapping it up to say like, well, I may have introduced some racist ideas in my movie, but in the end, the black guy wins. So what are you can't like call me racist, I guess.
There's also, it's sort of throughout, the Kittle's character is like a little bit of like an autodidact, and he's like, I mean, again, I think this is a troll where on the one hand, he's not actually like perfectly virtuous, but there's lots of like weird, over the top, impressive stuff. Like he won't let his mom have men over when his little brother's around. Like I think it's an imitation of those like blaxploitation movies from the 70s where maybe the black protagonist, ends up like outsmarting everybody and being better than all the other characters. So I wasn't sure if that was just like a reflection of genre formula or what, but yeah, I certainly sort of thought it was like a goofy ending, like especially with the MS wife getting the package of gold.
Yeah, I'm going to call him Slim. I think that was his like nickname amongst the criminals, but Slim's power levels are a little too high. He's a little too clever, and too capable.
Mary Sue, even, you might say.
Yeah.
And I think that was deliberate as well. Like I think it is making fun a little bit of that.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's see. That's something I wanted to. So we touched already on that scene with the where they introduce this woman. We learn her very sad story about how she just wants to stay home with her baby. I think one of Degree said, it might have been you. I think that you said it was like didn't have a bearing or something on the rest of the story or something, but I think in a sense it didn't have a bearing on the rest of the story, but it was the setup, of course. Well, here's the thing. You get in these movies, like in a typical like heist movie or something, you might see a bunch of people die and it usually like means nothing. So I do think it's kind of a clever move to just show like, oh, this is a real person with a who doesn't even want to be at this job, and then it makes it really powerful. I mean, in kind of a bad way, but it makes it very powerful when she gets killed. But additionally, it's one of the craziest instances of like the cautionary tales about women in the workplace that I've ever seen. Like, she doesn't want to work. She wants to be with her baby, and she like has this impulse to stay home and be with her baby. And it's like, have you ever
And her soy jack boyfriend.
yeah, exactly. Have you ever I don't know if you've ever been like around a cat who just gave birth or something. I remember this happened. We had a cat that like just this stray cat that would come around, and it gave birth to these kittens. And I remember like trying to move them, and like the mom would just constantly like move them back to wherever I had moved them from and stuff. And she was just like very single-mindedly, trying to get these kittens back to where she wanted them. And that's like this mom in this movie. She's just like trying to claw her way back into the apartment, and the boyfriend has to lock her out. But I just thought it was funny. I mean, she's kind of doing what society tells her to do, which is to go to work. And then she gets killed actually for cooperating, because the guys are like, if anyone alerts the cops, we're going to kill all of you. And she tries to prevent her coworker from alerting the cops, and she gets killed for it. So, I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Well,
Sorry, go ahead,
I think that there was I felt a little trolled by that story myself. That's that little subplot, because I was sort of like, oh wow, he's being honest about this situation that's like a kind of a hobby horse of mine. But then he's so over the top, and she's like borderline, like almost literally losing her mind about like leaving the baby. And I was sort of like, all right, is this guy making fun of me? Like, like this is, he's going so hard on this. And I did feel like there was a little bit of like glee in the like, I'm going to tell you this sweet little story, and then I'm just going to splatter her brains all over the walls.
Yeah, I thought this was the most mean-spirited part of the movie. And unlike most of the movie, like the target of the mockery was not like conventional attitudes of modernity. It was just like being a human being. Like, she's totally hysterical and out of her mind in her attachment to her baby. As Bennett said, it's like he can only render, he's like bringing in sort of like a sweet emotion for like one of the first times in the movie, and he can only render it in this completely over the top way. And then, yeah, I agree. I think she's sort of like, I think the glee comes in where he's like, it's sort of a weird thing where he's like, okay, you thought this was a movie where you maybe don't have to care about anybody, but I'm just going to like real quick let you bond with a character and then take her out. And so, yeah, I guess I sort of read that as like, I'm not just making fun of libtards in this movie. I hate everybody. So like, if you're just John Q. Normal in the audience, like, fuck you too.
I think we need to promote it as a cautionary tale. Every woman should have to see that before they go back to work.
It could happen to you.
Yeah. And why does her boss, I thought this is an interesting decision. She goes back to work, and that the boss, the bank manager, why is he doing like
sonnet?
Yeah, why is he doing this Shakespearean welcome? What is that? What's going on?
Oh man, it was such a weird scene. Okay, yeah, you're reminding me of all the shit that I was like, what is going on?
I think that's just like flair. I can imagine doing some dumb shit like that if I was just in middle management trying not to kill myself, Be like, I'm going to read Henry VIII to these unwilling...
Because I can.
It's very bizarre. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like it because it is so weird, but yeah, I mean, you get weird guys like that, but it's like he goes full the actor's studio or whatever.
Yeah, it's like you do get weird guys like that, but like, why is he in this movie? Like that's,
I don't know.
What are you trying to say with this guy?
I don't know. Leave a comment. What is the bank manager all about? Why is he there?
I think it's like, I think maybe this isn't a very satisfying explanation, but I think of it as like contrast. It's like you're about to have the most brutal criminals in the world like break through the door. So you want to for a second show like how gay and retarded like normal working life is by just like having one of them have a weird personality quirk.
Yeah, like this is how soft the world is. The world is not cut out for. The world is not prepared for these sort of criminals to just
Yeah,
come
because
in.
I think
No, that's what it is.
I think it has the same function as like if the criminals broke in when someone in the kitchen was being like, Marcy, did you like eat half of my PB and J again? Like it's just supposed to be like these guys aren't ready for this shit.
Yeah. That's almost certainly. Street corner felines. Felines like to strut. Canines like to hunt. All animals seek companionship. Ladies walk the pavement. They're looking for a fellow who'll pick them up tonight. Men
Is
in
this
limousines
lyrics?
eyeball these kittens. Nothing ever lights up this part of the city. Some guys are friendly and some guys are very mean. A girl learns the truth when the light goes off. Red high heels and lipstick, a white blouse that's cut so very low. Short skirts show off their fishnets. She's got a lovely French manicure. Underneath this clothing, you can only imagine.
Those are the lyrics.
Those are the lyrics.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I have a contention. I think all creatures seek companionship, but degree studies walks alone.
Back to the another weird thing about the bank thing, and I used the word surreal. I don't know if it's the right word really, but when the criminals come in, they use that tape to talk. They use a pre-recorded like give us all the money, give us all the gold thing.
They've got every situation in that tape, and they don't have to spend a ton of time jumping. Like they know how far they have to jump in the tape.
Yeah, how did they map out the conversation in advance? How do they know what the guy would say?
They're just friggin' professionals, man.
Yeah, and this might have been while you were. I think this was while you were away, but the criminals are kind of weird because they're shown to be like kind of high level and invincible and like very good at crime. And it's like, why are they? When we were this is rehashing, but like, why are they knocking down, I guess, liquor stores and stuff? Like, that's the only way they can raise money to buy their van. Like, I thought that was weird, but
is that what he was doing? Yeah, I couldn't make sense of the liquor store or the convenience store. What?
Yeah, and they kill those guys who are cashing their checks and stuff. It's like you're going after this big like $100 million gold job. Like, aren't you kind of high level?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little earlier, but I think it's just it's definitely not supposed to mean they're like out of control, but just that they're psychos. Like, in addition to being very competent, they're like violent psychopaths. That's sort of how I interpreted it. So like,
yeah, because he like shoots that guy basically for no reason, and then he just starts shooting into the store just to shoot stuff.
Yeah.
Well, then when he goes to buy the van, before the salesman even like is done talking, he just starts shooting the van, just to test it out. But he's very reckless.
Yeah, and maybe that's supposed to provide an explanation for like how Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson could ever get one up on them at all, because it's like they're so like well armed and well planned. It's like, well, what's their weakness? And maybe it's just like they're a little too psychotic.
Yeah. And speaking of well armed, I try and avoid this sort of thing, but I couldn't help but notice, like, if you're trying to rip off, and maybe the cops didn't really know this when they started tailing him, but they didn't exactly know what job the guys were doing. But if you're going to be like ripping off some criminals, they didn't seem to bring enough firepower. I would have had a lot more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they had like this weird hockey masks, and
I was hoping
yeah,
you
they
would know what
weren't.
those were. I don't know what those are. Those masks.
No idea. I don't know that those are a real thing. Are they a real thing? I'm gonna Google it.
They look cool. They look like kind of scary.
Yeah, you can get those.
What's it? What are they for? Who usually uses them?
I think it's like uh they're obviously not like full hockey mask, but I don't know if it's a part of the hockey mask or if you're playing like street hockey or something, you would just use that.
Oh, I thought it was like a tactical thing, not even a sports thing. But
No, it's not sports. It's called a ballistic mask, apparently.
oh, can it actually
Well,
take a
shows what
round?
I know.
It looks like they're level 3, so that's most pistols and shotguns.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, I guess so you don't get shot in the face. I guess I'm trying to like to justify this. It doesn't take a ton of justification. You don't want to get shot in the face. Fair enough.
I just thought they kind of looked cool, but I didn't know what they were. Um, all right, but yeah, I would have brought some things that exploded.
Well, these are downscale, lower middle class police.
Yeah.
They don't have.
Yeah,
I
and
think
all
that's
of it was sort of, it's like it's all happening a little bit on the fly, right?
Yeah, I guess I kind of answered my own question, but I don't think they anticipated knocking off that big of a heist. I don't think they
Yeah,
anticipated
I don't think they knew they were dealing with like European.
international criminals.
Yeah, yeah. They thought they were like knocking over a drug dealer or something.
Also, this is like a random question, but like all movies present crime as if there are uh like petty criminals in every city that are like plugged into gangs and cartels and stuff. But then that there's like this fully professionalized white collar criminal elite. And just like following the news and stuff, like does that exist at all? Like really high level. It seems like whenever you read about a bank robbery, it's just like people on crack with a pistol. Like the only thing I can think of was those like Russian guys in LA who had the like super body armor and the machine guns. But that was like 30 years ago now, where it was like, oh man, who are these like international criminals who seem to have like a better plan? But it seems like that's really rare.
Well, I mean, that's essentially your line of work, man. It's surveillance technology is too advanced. I think that the cells like that just get broken. I mean, that's the Italian mafia was basically just destroyed by surveillance technology. I don't know that level of organization can exist without the sufferance of the U.S. government anymore. I mean, like the cartels exist essentially because in order to fully disrupt them, you'd have to make their countries a war zone. But like as far as them coming here and doing stuff, I think it's just too easy to spot at this point.
Interesting.
I mean, you read like Days of Rage, and like what the leftist like terror cells were doing. Like they were buying dynamite at the hardware store, and paying cash for everything, and it was really almost impossible to trace, and everything they needed was readily available. And now it's just even just for like economic purposes, commercial purposes, financial transactions are tracked at too high of a level of detail. Like maybe you make the case that they were knocking over convenience stores to buy what they needed because they were sort of an army fighting on their belly, and they couldn't afford to. Like, there's an interesting take on it. Like
That's
they
how they
don't want to.
anonymized it.
They don't want to move money around. They don't want to
Yeah.
move money around. They don't want to have to bring it from their Swiss bank account or the Caymans or wherever they keep their stash. So they just do a couple petty crimes they know they can get away with on the big job.
A coffee shop here wouldn't take cash from me the other day. They were like, this is a card only establishment.
Which that's illegal, isn't it? Because it's legal tender for all debts, public and private.
Well,
You gotta take cash.
what they told me, maybe this was the loophole, is they said they only took exact change in cash. Like I had a 10, and my coffee was like
Oh.
$5.69, and they were like, unless you have $5.69, you can't pay with cash.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I certainly think that should be illegal.
I do too. Yeah, this
Hang on. Cindy ran away as a kid. Her father liked the bottle and throwing fists. For 2 years, she sold herself as a woman, hustling. She plied the trade on the avenue, but still she feels the hurt. Last week, Sally turned up dead, strangled for a thrill, and left in the gutter. This savvy kitten had a gun in her purse, but she wasn't quick enough. Look out, felines. This dog is still hungry.
I need to get this soundtrack.
there's some good songs on it. And actually, this reminds me that there's a some of it feels a little bit like riffing off of Tarantino. He likes this music too. He likes funk music and soul music and stuff. And this movie also has just some Tarantino aspects to it, where it's you have like top level actors doing these kind of long conversations that aren't necessarily about what's about the actual story of the movie. And so I googled just to see if Tarantino had commented on this movie, because he comments pretty openly on a lot of people's movies. I think he has a podcast or something.
Yeah.
And he hasn't, I don't think he's commented on it, but someone mentioned that he was at the screening or the premiere and that he was like laughing. So they're basically saying they thought he liked it.
Yeah, I especially thought that we already talked about it, but the dialogue in that first scene, like the sleep apnea and the girl being deaf, that all seemed very Tarantino-y to me.
Yeah, and just a lot of the stuff in the stakeout with the two guys in the car, and some of that seems like inspired at least a little bit by Tarantino.
Yeah, I did want to say, granted, that I agree with you. There are some great lines like between Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn, but I thought it was very uneven. Like some of them, I was just like, what? Like, I'll try to think of a funny one, but one that made me laugh because it was just like retarded is when Vince Vaughn says to the captain, "I'm not racist. Every MLK day I get a dark roast." It's like, that's not even really a joke.
I thought that one was funny because it doesn't land in the room too.
Right.
But it's just like told a bad dumb joke.
And the friggin' tight mic on that egg salad sandwich for like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I sort of missed it that like there are moments where Vince Vaughn is supposed to be like dopey. But there's other minutes where he's like really funny and cool and like classically Vince Vaughn. Like I was laughing really hard. He's like sort of vaguely explaining to the jeweler that he has problems and he's like not going to buy the ring or whatever. And the guy's like, "I have 2 in-laws that are therapists and 4 that are lawyers."
Yeah.
And it cuts back to Vince Vaughn and he's like, "I don't need that kind of help."
Also, that jeweler, is he the only like Jew reference in the movie?
Well, I mean, he's enough. He's like 17 Jew references.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it was very much like that. That definitely felt like just why are we even here? What are we even talking about?
I wanted to talk about. So at this point, I'm just running through notes, and my notes are basically actually they're all over the place. I was going to say they're in order, but they're not. So I'm just going to drop some stuff, and you can comment or not. But the scene with Don Johnson of Miami Vice fame, it's like they're just one for one explaining Mel Gibson's like last 10 years or whatever, where his real life dilemma with like, he's like, Don Johnson's like, and some people might even record a phone call without your permission. And I thought that was a kind of I guess a joke or whatever. Gibson's a good sport, or maybe he, I don't know. I thought that was just funny.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
that's a
kind of
conversation.
thing. Because while you're watching the whole movie, you're thinking like, are all the guys involved with this just like similar kinds of assholes who are in cahoots fucking with us? And then moments like that, you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what this is.
Yeah, I know Vaughn and Gibson are like, in some way or another they're, kind of conservative coded, but what about Don Johnson? Does he have that reputation too?
I'm not sure he's politically legible, but it feels right.
He
It
seems
feels
like a
right in
guy
my
who
heart.
might, yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's working with these guys, and he was on Brawl and Cell Block 99 as well. You guys ever see that movie White Girls with the Wayans brothers?
I've seen parts of it.
But do you know what I'm referencing now, though?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, when those guys put on the makeup to drive away, it looks just like the White Girls movie.
Yeah, there's something about like full face masks or something that has like a particularly consistent, uncanny look.
Yeah, that's black guys with white makeup doesn't look right.
Have either of you guys seen Bone Tomahawk?
I have, but it was like right when it came out, and I don't remember things very well if I didn't like talk about it a bunch when it came out.
No, I haven't seen it. It's on my list though. Is it good?
It's good. It's good. It's a lot like uh, there's some similar stuff. I think it has like more like horror style violence, but it's you know I think he's a consistently good director, but
Are they like supernatural cannibal Indians, or are they just cannibal Indians?
um I don't think they're explicitly supernatural, but I think they have like extra strength and stuff because they're like Neanderthal or something. Like I think it goes into an explanation of like they're a weird evolutionarily unique group, and so they're like much stronger and faster than human beings.
Um, I always like to talk about the like wives and girlfriends. Mel Gibson's character, I guess his name is Ridgman. Ridgman's wife is extremely like, she's very cool. He's just like, don't ask. I'm gonna solve these problems and don't ask me how. She's like, okay, that's cool. But Vince Vaughn, I think what's his character's name? It's something Italian. Do you guys remember? Anyway,
I
Laura
do not.
Steady.
Anthony Lurisetti.
Anthony, yeah.
What do you think about his girlfriend?
Well, we don't see much of her, right? Besides her saying no, so it's sort of like a bad.
Well, I wonder if there's more trolling going on here because she's like the frizzy-haired mixed race girl. It's like in every advertisement, and she's a girl boss. Like when she and she's very like disapproving of him in his like cop ways. She openly like tells him that she's smarter than him and stuff.
Yeah, she and Slim are definitely, there's something to say about kind of representation. Yeah.
And I just wondered if Zahler's kind of making fun of her, like as the like model, that's the woman that's in every TV show as some sort of
Yeah.
girl boss.
No, exactly.
And she's on the phone late at night for her meeting, like, oh, is this, the deal's not going to go through? Is it ADA accessible and stuff like that?
I thought that was like a little bit. I mean, maybe I'm taking the movie too seriously, but like, I thought that was a weird aspect of Vince Vaughn's character, like his relationship, because it's like he doesn't seem like a loser except where she is involved.
Yeah.
And it like rang a little untrue to me, but I don't know.
I was thinking that he takes a bullet, he dies, but I was wondering if in the end he ultimately dodged a bullet.
Well done.
Is that in your notes or is that off the dome?
I was just I was thinking about that when I watched it, but just like this, she doesn't seem like a good fit for him.
No, not at all.
It's a distinctly odd part of the movie, if you ask me. Like that they set up his relationship that way.
Something
Yeah, like
else.
you say that. I This whole movie's so friggin' weird that like you point it out and you're like, oh, that's a weird part of the movie. I'm like, oh yeah, that one also is a weird part of it. It's all weird. Every scene
Okay,
is weird.
but you're right. But the way I would sort of expand it is like this movie is very conscientious in its presentation of a race. So like and like how characters are talking about race. And both the cops are sort of like racist in like a practical utilitarian way. And so I guess what I was thinking is like, are we supposed to be adding some like filling in some like does it matter to Zahler that it's like oh but this guy could like love a black woman? I don't know. Like I didn't think that was it, but I just didn't really understand the function of the choice. But maybe it is just like a troll, as you guys are saying.
Or maybe and this is what I've, if you've been on like Twitter for a while, the joke is like every racist has a brown girlfriend or something. Like there's just the casualness, and maybe Zahler's one of these guys who kind of wants to go back to that. I don't know, but there's casual ways people can talk about these things, but there's not actually any hatred in them or any. They don't actually dislike other people. They just like to speak casually and joke or something. I don't know if that's what he's saying.
Well, and I think there is also an element of like, there's black and there's black,
Yeah.
because she's very much the kind that can sort of write the story about my racial trauma and like the code switching that I had to do in my biracial home, and that's what gets her into Harvard or whatever. But like her situation is not Slim's situation, like at all. And it's not even the two white cops situation.
She's like a yogurt commercial black person.
Right.
I was gonna say she's a Justin. Who are these lawmakers? Justin Johnson, Justin Pearson.
Oh yeah, Justin Pearson. Yeah, the hero of Tennessee.
Yeah, she's Justin Pearson's aunt.
Life after prison ain't easy. No. This neighborhood's no longer safe. His amigos are dead or in jail. Yeah. The old hangout's gone, long gone. Hunters chase their two-legged prey, can't stand in my way. These lions roar with gunpowder. Oh no, can't trust the police. Shotgun safari.
Yeah, I think that's the song the movie ends on.
I need a psych eval on Zahler. I need to learn more about this guy.
I think his next movie is like a puppet thing. It's got like puppets involved, so I don't know what's going on. I think he's kind of been I don't know. I think he's having trouble raising money or something. I don't think they want to support him anymore.
I don't know. How the hell did he get these movies made?
The first two were pretty cheap, and then, Vince Vaughn, I think, played a big role in getting this one made. He got Mel Gibson to join. But budget was $15 million. It didn't make any money at the box office, like $500,000 at the box office. I don't really know how movies make their money back. I guess they just sell to streaming services or something, but I don't know if he's in trouble for losing money in addition to being controversial. I don't know.
Well, this puppet movie is called Puppet Master: The Littlest Reich. In Texas of 1989, escaped Nazi war criminal Andre Toulon attempts to engage a bartender in a sexual relationship. He responds with disgust upon learning that she is a lesbian. Later that night, he induces his sentient puppets to attack and kill the woman and her lover. Rookie police officer Carol Dureski follows Toulon to his mansion, where she shoots him to death after he pulls a gun on her. So then there's Nazi puppets in the mansion.
Wait, is that a remake? Because I feel like I've heard of The Littlest Reich, but maybe I was just reading about this.
Well, this is 2018.
I think that might be an old thing. The next thing is Hug Chicken Penny. That's what it's called. A gothic tale that he will bring to the big screen with the help of his new creative partners, the Jim Henson Company. It sounds like a joke. I don't know.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
He's
That's
also a
friggin'
writer.
rad.
He's written some books.
So
I
the
think.
Hensons probably have, racial phenotype puppets. They've been waiting to break out for 100 years, and maybe this is finally their chance.
Yeah. Um. Let's see. I don't think I have really much else to say. I mean, there's. I like this movie in total. I think don't watch it if you're squeamish or don't like kind of mean dark comedy.
Naked Asian chicks.
Yeah. I mean, she's not bringing a lot to the show though.
She's a particularly boyish Asian prostitute.
Yeah, so you don't have to feel bad.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
Oh my god! You talking about it, you make me want to see it again, and because I watched it one time all the way through, and there's a lot of stuff that like I really can't process a movie until I've seen it, twice through. I should give this one another shot.
Well, in this one in particular, I remember more than most movies leaving the first viewing just being like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just very bewildering. And having talked about it now, I'm like, okay, I'm picking up what he was laying down with a lot of this stuff. Like, he wasn't just like a crazy 85-year-old man. Like, he's doing some interesting things. So yeah, I'm gonna watch it again.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw it, I thought it was kind of stressful, but then subsequent watchings,
Yeah.
and maybe this is evidence of my own decline or something, but subsequent watches, I just mostly found it funny.
Yeah, I think you're right that I had a similar experience where like I was a little bit nervous because so many unexpected violent things keep happening that I was like a little bit, because I think probably the first time I watched it, I didn't laugh at anything because I was just like a little bit tense. And then sort of once you know what the beats are, you see more what's like funny about it.
Yeah, and it just came out on Netflix, so it's, I think, got a bit of a resurgence. Hopefully that means people will be finding this podcast, but it was like top 10 for Netflix for a week or two when it dropped on there.
Yeah, I saw some concerned troll articles of like, why is this racist movie like a sleeper hit on Netflix?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if you guys noticed this. I didn't notice this until like the third viewing, but when one of the henchmen is robbing those two guys in their car, I didn't really realize it, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be a gay couple. Because they come out of the check cashing place and they're kind of bickering like an old married couple. And they're like, you always forget where you parked the car and stuff like that. You're such a
both in movies and in real life, unless I witness consummation, I assume all men are gay.
I thought they were like Cheech and Chong, like stoner buddies. That was how I read that. But
that's what I thought at first too. But then once I watched it, and they're like, there's another thing, like right as they're getting in the car, they're just saying these little things to each other that are more like a couple would say to each other. And then the one of those henchmen, he always works in some like little racist like joke. He's like he calls the guy he shoots in the car, he calls him Taco, and when he's buying the van, I guess the salesman is apparently Arab. I couldn't really tell on screen, but he's like, if you screw me on this, you'll be ringing Allah's doorbell.
Solid stuff. I mean, because they're a little obvious, but I appreciate the spirit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're like really really low effort racist little comments.
Yeah. There's a lot. It felt like there's this comic strip of like Klansmen at a rally, and they're like, "Man, I was trying to talk about football, but this guy just kept wanting to say the N-word. Like he just kept like that's all he wanted to talk about. And like, I'm a complete person. I got all kinds of things that I'm into. I'm not just racist. And I sort of felt that way watching this movie. Like, man, like, just, it's okay. We get it. Like, take it easy.
Well, that's almost, there is like a funny contrast where it's like, you can imagine the writer being like, are Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson racist? Yes, but they challenge themselves to make novel and well-formulated racist observations, whereas these criminal monsters just like say slurs.
Yeah. Speaking of good quotes from the main guys, these are not racist ones. They're just lines I thought were good. But Mel Gibson asks him, he's like, "You're still in?" He says, "I'm in until I'm not." I like that line. And then what's the other one? Oh yeah, I like the line, "I know all of my limits, but not yours." I thought that was a nice line. I don't know if maybe that's not original enough to get credit for, but I liked it.
It's cool that it's cool that you get these seeds planted that everybody kind of knows who Mel Gibson's character is. And there's a sense of like they've seen him do some shit. And it's not all articulated exactly what that is. I like that.
Yeah, that his character has this reputation of being too tough, and the chief of police is like, you weren't always like this. Like, you weren't this bad in the past. And then and his response is like, so what? And I take that to mean like, the world's gotten worse, or he's learned more. Like, he figures he needs to be worse or something.
Yeah, I think there's a couple interesting things there. One is like, he does a really good job of not caring about other people's moral scandalization, but it gets more interesting with the Vince Vaughn lines you just read, because I think what Vince Vaughn is saying is, he's like, I'm a little fucked up, but I'm not as fucked up as you. So if you could like, make an effort to not put me in a position where I like really morally compromise myself, or, it's like, it's not pleading, but I think he's just trying to say like, yeah, we're mostly on the same page, but you're also sort of a wild card. And like, that's why I remain a little bit uncomfortable with this. And that's, that's good writing.
I like that conversation when he's like trying to talk him into it, kind of. He's like, we're good guys, we're good cops, like we deserve to be compensated for just being good guys, kind of. I mean, it's more clever than that. I was actually I'll use that in the beginning of the episode to like lead it in, but I like that conversation. I don't have anything else. I was gonna ask you guys, I guess, did you know this phrase, cast iron? Have you ever heard that before?
No. Yeah, what Ron Johnson keeps saying of like, you didn't need to cast all that iron or whatever.
You gave him a little too much cast iron or something. I like that line. You guys ever give too much cast iron?
I don't think I give nearly enough cast iron. I see this movie and I think I need to get more cast iron.
Yeah, 2023 is the year of cast iron. Roughing up minorities on the street. Don't do it. Don't do it, guys. All right. Anything else? I'm going to wrap it up there if you guys don't have anything else. Oh, actually, can you read the lyrics to the drive-in song? I like that one.
Hang on.
Here, I'll plug you guys' stuff, and then right when I'm done, you read the lyrics, and then I'll put the song on the end. So thanks, Bennett, for joining. Bennett's got his exit group. I think it's exit.us. Is that right?
Exitgroup.us. This episode brought to you by Exit Group, exitgroup.us.
Yeah, and FanDuel. And Bennett's also got his Substack. I'll link that. And, of course, his Twitter. Degree Studies has got, his Twitter. Go follow that. I think I saw you wanted to, start doing your podcast some more.
Yeah, I think I'm going to bring it back. I think I'm going to do, because this isn't interesting to anyone, but my feeling was sort of doing like a topical podcast. It's just like, my takes weren't always the best and weren't always not derivative. So I sort of just got tired of weighing in on like the thing of the moment. But I think if I make it sort of like a book club, I think I'll feel better about perpetrating my opinions on people. So we may see a rebrand as a book club podcast in the next couple weeks, and maybe I can convince Bennett to come on and do the Gospel of John as one of the first episodes. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, subscribe. I'll put the link. Subscribe to his podcast for when the new content starts rolling. And all right, you got that those lyrics?
You were sitting there one afternoon at the back of the soda shop. My heart skipped as I introduced myself. All your friends had joined you for milkshakes, but somehow I saw only you. A warm feeling inside of me lighted up. La la, dee dee dee, dee dee dee. That you gave me your phone number, I wrote it down. I looked into your eyes and I say, my future. I invited you to dinner that Saturday. A new place in town opened up where I wanted us to go. Let me take you to the drive-in. There's a space in the last row. I will show you a very fine time. I'll kiss you when the lights go down until the credits roll. I wish I could do something to help you feel better. Ooh. The doctor said you don't have much time. No medicine can help you recover. Oh no. Wow, it took a turn. But I do know one thing that will help ease the pain. The old place is still around where we once used to go. Let me take you to the drive-in. There's a space in the last row. I'll show you a very fine time. I'll kiss you when the lights go down until the credits roll. May this night last forever. Please don't close the drive-in. Please don't close the drive-in. Please don't close the drive-in.
I think I know what medicine might help her. Some of that cast iron.
Oh, I gotta go.
All right, thank you guys.
Good night.